middle lane hoggers. Oblivious to what they're doing. An example that happened relatively recently, he started brake checking me, trying to cause a crash. He then flung some drink out at me. Hello, I'm Marcus Hayes, back for another episode of Rant On Road. I've just finished a day round the garage working on Heidi, my hearing aid beige Model Mark II Escort, which you'll be able to see in the next video. That was supposed to be this video, but it will be the next video. But yeah, as always, if you're a regular viewer of my content, hit the like button now because it's a massive help. However, if you're new to the channel, welcome, and click the subscribe button now to keep up to date with all future uploads. So, Rant On Road, because everyone loves a rant. But before we get on with today's Rant On Road, I want to touch on something that a couple of you guys have mentioned in the comments of previous Rant On Road videos, and that is that you consider these videos to be, you know, a bit moany, a bit negative compared to the flavour of my channel, you could say. You know, I like to think of myself as a very positive person. I certainly don't let things get to me, such as haters on the internet, such as when I utterly fail with my cars. So I see where you guys are coming from, but you know, the Rant On Road videos have, for the most part, you know, sparked really interesting debates in the comments, and yeah, I think it's a good addition to the channel, and it just means that I've got an opportunity to diversify my content and maximize, you know, how many videos I can put out and stuff. But if you watch the Rant On Roads till the end, you'll notice that I always sort of put a positive spin on them, and yeah, sort of put out the message that all these things that I do rant about aren't worth, you know, ruining your day over. And yeah, I sort of hint at how I view these things that we are ranting about in a positive light. So yeah, I do intend to carry on with the Rant On Road videos, but you know, put in the comments any ideas you've got, you know, about that. You know, do you think that they don't suit this channel? Maybe I should start a Rant On Road dedicated channel and put them all on there. I don't know. Interested to hear your opinions, but you know, everyone loves a rant. And in this video, I want to rant about something that I hear a lot of people ranting about, and that is people's lane discipline when, you know, you're driving on the motorway. A lot of people moan about middle lane hoggers, or sometimes people refer to them as middle lane W anchors. But as well as ranting about people that haven't got very good lane discipline, I'm going to explain why, potentially controversially, I actually like middle lane hoggers. All right, so we've all seen these people on the motorways that just seem to hog the middle lane, right? And then it's a nightmare for people that are maybe in the left lane, which is where you should be at all times unless you're overtaking, you know, when they need to overtake these people, because sometimes these people that hog the middle lanes are going very slow. They're not even going the 70 miles an hour that you're allowed to on the motorway. So I get it. If you're the kind of person that is keeping over to the left, and you're the kind of person that does like to do 70 miles an hour on the motorway, or maybe slightly less, then when you come across these people that are hogging the middle lane, you know, when they could be over in the slow lane, it's a bit more effort to sort of overtake them, because you've got to go right out into the right-hand lane, the fast lane, to overtake them, you know, legally, right? So I get it. But before I get on to why I actually like middle lane hoggers, I'm going to explain why I think we should always really forgive middle lane hoggers. Because look, we can assume that everyone on the road knows, you know, they've got the knowledge that you are supposed to stay over to the left on the motorway unless you're overtaking, right? It's not that these people don't know that that's the rules. They teach you that when you're learning to drive. It's one of the things that they bang on about when you're learning to drive. So we can't give people the benefit of the doubt in that way. They know how they should be driving on a motorway, right? So there's only two reasons really why someone would be a middle lane hogger, someone who would not be exercising correct lane discipline. And it's two different types of ignorance. That's the way I look at it, right? So the first type is someone who's just ignorant to what they're doing because they're just oblivious to the world. They're oblivious to what they're doing. They're oblivious to what other people are doing. They're just oblivious to what's going on in general. And a lot of people do live like that. You know, I like to refer to them, I mean, I've heard other people refer to them, and it's absolutely right, as NPCs, non-player characters. You know, back in the day when I was a kid and I used to play computer games, you'd have your character that you're controlling, and then you'd have other characters in the computer game that aren't controlled by anyone. They're just programmed by the game to do certain things, say certain things. They don't have their own free will, if you like. And that's what these people in life are like, you know, non-player characters. So, you know, some people are literally just middle lane hogging because they're oblivious to what they're doing. They're just running on autopilot all the time. And I think these modern cars that people are driving nowadays make that worse because they basically drive themselves. So you're much more likely to be in a state where you are on autopilot and you're not actively thinking about what you're doing. And that's what I like about classic cars, because you're kind of forced to actually drive them, you know, to be in the moment. And living in the present moment is something that I strive to do as much as I can on a daily basis, like, because I sort of recognise how good living in the present moment as much as you can is just for your overall like health and well-being and mental health and whatnot. But yeah, on a less deep level, you can say that most people are just running on autopilot. So, you know, these lane hoggers, you know, the first example of ignorance that we can forgive them for is that they are just oblivious to the world, right? The second type of ignorance, which I think we can forgive people for, and which I think is the reason that some people are, you know, middle lane hoggers or whatever, is egotistical ignorance, where, you know, they're the kind of people that think, you know, why should I move over to the left lane? You know, if it's easier for me to get on the motorway and just sit in the middle lane, then, you know, why should I do anything else? It is kind of a case of they don't realise what they're doing, but not in a way where they're just sort of innocently oblivious to the world. Like, just because they're actively the kind of person that doesn't really consider other people, or doesn't really consider the ways in what they're doing affects other people. So that's what I would call egotistical ignorance to what they're doing, right? And the reason I say that we should forgive people for both of these reasons, which I see as the only real reasons that people do things like, you know, hog the middle lane, is because, you know, because they're oblivious, right? Because it's ignorance. So if they're ignorant to what they're doing for whichever one of those two reasons I've just said, then no matter what you do, you're not going to change that. They're oblivious, right? So if you're getting the ump and you're behind these people bibbing or flashing your lights, or if you're going past them and waving at them or whatever, it's not going to make any difference because they are ignorant people, right? All that's going to do is it's going to ruin your day, you know, get you in a mood. It's going to mean that for the next half an hour or however long, you're going to be thinking about how much of an idiot that person was, whilst they just continue to live their life in ignorance, oblivious to what's going on. So you're not going to be harming them, you're only going to be harming yourself. And if it's someone who's egotistically ignorant, then they're just going to react in a negative way to you, or they're just going to, as I say, just think, you know, why should I move over? They're going to potentially continue to be egotistically ignorant even more to spite you, right? So under no circumstances, in my opinion, does it help to, you know, negatively engage with these people that are, you know, middle lane hogging or whatever, because the only difference in outcome is how you're going to make yourself feel. You know, you're going to put yourself in a bad mood. You're, you know, wasting your own energy. You're much better off putting that energy into thinking of a way that you can undertake, or, you know, find a way to get around these people, or, you know, put that energy into just relaxing and accepting that, you know, you're in a situation where you can't get past this person. You already know you're in a situation where you're not going to change this person because ignorant people can't be changed. So yeah, you know, there's no point losing our rag about these people, although I know that's easier said than done. And I'll explain a situation I was in relatively recently, actually, with someone lane hogging, but they weren't middle lane hogging. And that brings me on to why I actually like middle lane hoggers, because what's worse than a middle lane hogger is a fast lane hogger. And look, you know, disclaimer, right? Obviously, I never ever speed on the motorway. I only ever do 70 miles an hour on the motorway, right? You know, it's none of my business if other people do speed, but let me just clarify that I only ever do 70 mile an hour on the motorway. So I'm going to explain this in a certain way which ties in to that fact. So let's just say, for instance, you know, I've been in these situations so many times where I'm doing 70 miles an hour exactly on the motorway, but then there's someone who is fast lane hogging who's doing 67 miles an hour, right? And because they're fast lane hogging, it means that I can't do the 70 miles an hour that I want to do in the fast lane. I've got to do 67 miles an hour in the fast lane and get held up by this person who is fast lane hogging. Now, a lot of the time, these people aren't actually technically doing anything wrong, because they're in the fast lane doing 67 miles an hour, whilst they're passing people in the middle lane that might be doing 64 miles an hour, let's say. But these people that they're passing have got a massive gap between each one. So I can see the point of you not pulling in behind each one, because, you know, you are moving faster than that lane. But the gap between those people in the middle lane is big enough that you could momentarily pull in and then pull back out into the fast lane. So in these situations where I'm trying to pass someone that's hogging the fast lane at 67 mile an hour while I'm doing 70 mile an hour, they could technically move over to the middle lane into one of these big gaps between the cars that are doing slower than the 67 or whatever that they're doing, and then let me pass at 70 mile an hour, and then they could pull out into the fast lane again. Now, interestingly, if they were a middle lane hogger, so if they were just the kind of person that's, you know, through ignorance, whichever of the two types of ignorance I've already stated, through ignorance, they're just sitting in the middle lane the whole time, then the fast lane would be free, wouldn't it? For people like me that want to do exactly 70 miles an hour and definitely no more ever in the fast lane to get past them. So that's why I seem to have more issues and more situations where I've got issues with fast lane hoggers than I do middle lane hoggers. You know, middle lane hoggers don't really ever annoy me. I see a lot of middle lane hoggers. I see a lot, you know, a lot of the time where I'm cruising along at 70 mile an hour in the fast lane, and I'll be overtaking middle lane hoggers that are doing slightly less than 70 mile an hour in the middle lane when there's no one in the left-hand side lane. So they are middle lane hogging, they should be on the left-hand side lane, but they're not bothering me because I'm in the fast lane. And that is why I like middle lane hoggers. I just don't like the fast lane hoggers. You know, they're the ones that really hold me up. And yeah, it's really annoying. And look, as I've already said, you know, if you come across these people that are ignorant, there's no point losing your rag. There's no point flashing your lights. There's no point, you know, waving at them. There's no point negatively reacting to them, even though I understand that's easier said than done, and I'm certainly not perfect, because these people are ignorant, right? But the worst type of ignorance when it comes to the fast lane hoggers is definitely the egotistical ignorance. And there's an example that happened relatively recently to me. I was in the fast lane, and yeah, this guy was doing, you know, less speed than I was. You know, granted, he was overtaking people that were in the middle lane, but as I've said, it was one of them examples where there was a massive gap between each car in the middle lane. So he could have quite easily momentarily moved into one of those spaces in the middle lane so that I could have carried on past, and then he could have pulled back out into the fast lane. You know, it wouldn't have negatively hindered him at all. It wouldn't have affected him at all. But, you know, he was adamant that he was going to stay in the fast lane and prevent me from, you know, moving along as fast as I wanted to. And, you know, in these situations, I like to, you know, get close enough so that the people know that I'm there, right? You know, so in case they are just oblivious and they don't realise, but obviously keeping enough distance so that I'm, you know, being safe. And that's exactly what I did this time. But because this guy was egotistically arrogant and ignorant, he started, you know, waving out the window at me. Then he started brake checking me, so he's literally slamming on his brakes and, you know, trying to cause a crash potentially, you know, in my eyes, which is utterly ridiculous, you know, very dangerous, even at 68 mile an hour, right? He was then like signalling, you know, pull over, you know, these brave heroes, you know, they want to like go to war and whatnot. I wasn't having any of it, you know. I'm not someone that bothers with trouble at all, you know, far from it. You know, I've always been completely the opposite, maybe a little bit too much, if I'm honest. So, you know, I wasn't reacting, but I was sort of, you know, waving back at him a bit and flashing my lights because, as I say, I'm not perfect. I got into that situation where I was a bit irate, and it was an example where getting irate just didn't help at all. If anything, it made him worse. You know, as I say, he started brake checking me. He then flung some drink out at me, out of his window, went all over my windscreen, which, again, potentially could be dangerous, right? Obviously, I've got windscreen wipers, so it was only a second or two where I was, you know, where my visibility was restricted, and then I cleaned my windscreen. I thought it was water, but when we actually stopped, where, you know, when we got to where we were going, it was actually sort of juice. So it actually, like, probably wasted a couple of quid on that dumb move, you know what I mean? But, you know, there it is. These egotistically arrogant idiots. Yeah, they are a bit idiotic, aren't they? But yeah, you know, it was one of them examples where there's no stopping these people that are ignorant, you know, whether it be sort of passively ignorant because they're oblivious to the world, or with this guy where he was literally just, you know, he's one of them guys that are probably dead set on just ruining people's days. And it didn't ruin my day, right? Admittedly, because I'd got myself a bit irate, I was, you know, once I'd got past him, you know, thinking about it for a few minutes afterwards. But because I actively tried not to keep dwelling on negative things that have happened, you know, I was able to get on with my day. It was absolutely fine. But yeah, it's just an example of the more extreme ignorance that you get from these people that do hog lanes. And it was an example why I like middle lane hoggers. I just don't like the fast lane hoggers. Ironically, eventually he did move over to let us past, and it was because his junction had come, and it just so happened that his junction, there was a lot of traffic to get off at this junction, and obviously because he was trying to stay in our way for as long as possible, he ended up moving over quite late, and then he was sort of, you know, making the people in the middle lane and the slow lane slow down unnecessarily as he sort of straddled across in front of them to join the slip road, which was sort of, you know, blocked up with traffic. So yeah, utterly pathetic. But yeah, when we did sort of go past him, he looked like a bit of a crackhead, you know. He looked like he could probably barely carry his own weight around, let alone you know, have a row. That, you know, how he was signifying sort of pull over and whatnot. So yeah, I'm sure I would have snapped him in half if it did go to blows or whatever, even though I'm not, you know, I'm not about trouble. I'm really not. It's just that for the last couple of years I have been actively every single day turning myself into the strongest human being that I can. But, you know, I digress. You know, I'm not about trouble. I'm completely the opposite, as I say. And in fact, I've got another example, and it's something that we have to deal with nearly every day near where we live. There's a sort of country road, you know, it's just a single lane one way and a single lane the other way, but it's a country road, so it's 60 mile an hour, it's national speed limit. You're allowed to do 60 mile an hour down this road, but it just seems like every day we're held up behind people. Sometimes people doing 30 miles an hour, right? And the sort of stretch, it's a good few miles. And because it's only a single lane one way and a single lane the other, you can overtake if there's no traffic coming the other way, but often there is traffic coming the other way and you can't overtake, and you've just got to sit behind these people that are, I assume, you know, passively just obliviously ignorant. These obviously aren't people that are egotistically oblivious. They're just people that, I don't know, maybe they're just so used to driving 20 mile an hour everywhere in London because we live just outside London. Maybe, you know, they've sort of been programmed so that when they see these roads that, you know, maybe they don't know the speed limit, but their default is 20, 30 mile an hour when this road is actually 60. Yeah, and it is really annoying, like, that on a daily basis, this particular road that's right near us, yeah, we do seem to get held behind people. You know, they're not lane hogging, it's only one lane, but it's just another example of people being oblivious to the world and that sort of hindering other people who are trying to progress in their day. But there has also been examples where people are clearly egotistically oblivious because, you know, you'll be going along and you'll be getting held up by someone at 30 mile an hour on a 60 mile an hour road, and then, you know, there'll be no traffic coming the other way, so you do go for an overtake. And then these people, like, as you're overtaking them, they'll speed up, like, to prevent you overtaking them. Like, it's madness. Like, if you wanted to go faster, why don't you just go faster? Why are you only going faster when someone's overtaking you? And it's because some people are just so wired and programmed to sort of, you know, negatively affect other people's lives. You know, some people are just wired to sort of like start negative, you know, situations with other people. Like, it's madness. And I've also been in a situation where, again, on this road, we'll be getting held up by someone who's doing 30 miles an hour when you can actually do 60. So, you know, we'll safely overtake. And then they start flashing you from behind, like as if they're like telling you off for overtaking them legally and doing the legal speed on a road. Like, it's almost as if they're saying, well, I don't want to do 60 mile an hour on this 60 mile an hour road. So why should you? Like, it's crazy. But, you know, again, these kind of people, like, you can't educate them. Like, if people are that dumb or that oblivious or that set in their ways, then you have just got to sort of be thankful that you can acknowledge that in them, because it probably means that you're not that kind of person yourself. You know, how sort of sad would it be to be the kind of person that is wired automatically to want to cause the stress to other people or prevent other people from getting on with their day. So, you know, again, you need to take a step back when you come across these people in life and just be thankful that you're not them, right? You know, it's something that I always tell myself. You know, if you're sort of faced with someone that you're having to deal with and it's distressing to deal with them, just be thankful that you're having to deal with them and that you're not actually them. That's something that I try and remember when I'm dealing with, you know, various people in life. And it's the same with the lane hogging on the motorways, right? You know, if you're held up by someone that is totally oblivious to what they're doing and they're just passively ignorant and they're holding you up, just be thankful that you're not them. You're not the kind of person that's holding people up and not even realising you're doing it. And then on the other hand, if you're being held up by someone who's clearly egotistically ignorant, maybe someone that's trying to abuse you, you know, in the situation like I told you, people waving at you, people throwing things out their window at you just because you want to legally overtake and get past them, just be thankful that you're having to deal with them rather than being that kind of person yourself. And, you know, just remember, we need to forgive these people for what they're doing, because they are doing it out of ignorance. So yeah, these morons, they just can't help it. But anyway, that is my rant about lane hoggers. Do let me know in the comments what you think, and get in the comments and tell me your stories that involve people hogging lanes and holding you up, or any other stories about any other subject that you want to rant about. I'm sure I'll be back very soon for another rant on road, but until then, if you thought this video was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Check the links in the description to follow me on social media. My email address is down there for anyone who wants to contact me. Check out my website and the Petrolhead Style website. A link to both of those will be in the description as well. Huge thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.